Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So over the last few days, I've been playing this game called The Adventures of Van Helsing, or The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing. Yeah, whatever. But it's been pretty fun. I pretty much stopped playing it. I'm probably gonna uninstall the game because I'm pretty much done. But it was a pretty cool experience, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are curious my overall thoughts and all the good stuff about the game. So I want to bring those to you guys today. So the game pretty much came out one day and people were like, you should try this Van Helsing thing. It came out today, so I'm like, okay. And it was like $13 or $14 off Steam or something like that. And pretty much used it as an opportunity to figure out what Steam actually was, because I hadn't used it before. I got the game, played the game, seemed pretty interesting on the first playthrough. We decided to play on the hardest difficulty on hardcore, and as a result, the game is pretty punishing for people who have no idea what's going on for the first time. So naturally, we died a few times. We also tried playing multiplayer. We tried a few things. Overall, the game in its initial state was really, really buggy. Multiplayer, wouldn't even say that it was practically unplayable for the first 2 days of multiplayer. That has gone better, in the days afterwards. So now you can kind of play multiplayer if you want. It's not that bad, but it is hosted on the player who makes the game, I believe. So as a result, if you want to play with your friend and neither one of you have good internet connections, you may be out of luck. And on top of that, a lot of things are bugged. As I mentioned in the video 2 days back, even when I beat the game on the hardest difficulty on hardcore, that particular day, enchanting items didn't work. And enchanting items is a pretty big deal because you pretty much get to select what kind of stat you want on each piece of gear, eventually resulting in having a lot more gear than you otherwise would without enchants. So it was a lot harder, and stuff like that seems to be kind of a common thing in the early stages of this game. There's a lot of bugs, and when they fix something, something else doesn't work quite as well. But this is kind of naturally what happens with video game releases that are not particularly well tested, which we've all experienced in recent times. Now the game, it's pretty cool. It plays a lot like most other RPG games that you guys have played, that I've played at least. I go through the game, kill some stuff, get some skill points, get some stat points. The game is very fluid, so it reacts, it works kind of like how you expect it to work, but naturally that's because the online capability is pretty crappy, so it's essentially a single player game. You gotta keep that in mind. But even as one, it was pretty smooth. Everything seemed to conceptually be there and be fairly fluid. And the gaming system is fairly simple. There's 4 stats that you can put points into, and some of them are obviously garbage, and some of them are pretty good. So you get some of those pretty good stats, and you get some of those skills that seem pretty good. You give them a try, and you can get pretty far in the game. The downside is that some of the later levels, which I've experienced, which I also showed you guys in a video a few days back, are pretty insane on the hardest difficulty level. I was essentially playing a tank with very high healing capability, and even with that, it was practically impossible to just face tank monsters in some of the late zones. So keeping that in mind, scaling that down to a character that's not quite as adept at taking damage, it may be close to impossible to do some of those levels, because what makes it difficult in some situations, in at least the really punishing situations, is that often there's a lot of monsters, a lot of fairly dangerous monsters that are in the early parts of the instance where you can't really run around and you can't really, move with the mobs and position yourself accordingly. You kind of have to deal with very small space, otherwise you'd aggro more monsters and increase your risk of dying. So that's pretty much my main beef with it. It's a little bit buggy, and it's not really the kind of game where if you want to play on the highest difficulty that you can kind of do whatever you want. I think the builds are fairly limiting, especially on the case of having a tanky character. It's more or less kind of like Path of Exile. If you want to make it all the way with no deaths, you gotta get that HP, you gotta get that defense, you gotta survive the hits so you can, send them back towards monsters. Overall, the game was pretty cool. On the plus side, in the end, I really enjoyed it, and that's really what counts, I suppose. Though I think, being a new type of game, because I usually play online games, being the kind of game where you just play for a little bit and dump it, kind of like the PlayStation hit of the week, kind of like what Diablo was, something like that. Diablo 3, of course. Just like a Crash Bandicoot game, man. Like you make a character, you have some fun, and then you beat the game, and then you do something else. So, it's kind of a letdown that it is that kind of game, because the game is very enjoyable to play, but nonetheless, I have to say it was pretty fun, and, if you guys are interested in wasting maybe 2 to 3 days, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, yeah, give it a try. It's pretty cool. I have to say that the end of the game is kind of hilarious. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but I'll spoil it for you guys a little bit. It's not like the epic vampire or giant werewolf or some, thing you saw in the movie kind of thing. It seems to be kind of its own game, and as a result, it was a little bit surprising, a little bit hilarious, and a little bit more fun that way. So overall, pretty good experience. Hope you guys, hope those of you that check out the game end up liking it as much as I do. I'll see you guys tomorrow.